Yeah.
My grandfather, Herbert Heath, was one of the proud living soldiers that's received a Purple Heart for his heroism in World War II. My grandfather had bigger things in store for him than surviving the Great Depression and World War II. Today I will discuss how he grew up, survived the Great Depression, and World War II. Let's first start with his childhood. He was born in St. Charles, Illinois on September 17, 1918 to Lawrence Heath and Frances Declan. He had a brother Gilbert and a sister Mary. My grandfather was raised on a 300-acre dairy farm in Caneville, Illinois. There he cared for the animals and repaired farm equipment, my mother tells me. And one of his favorite things to do was ride King and Colonial, his Percheron draft horses. My grandfather always said it was like riding a moving mountain. He also loved to play with his hand-carved toys. As for schooling, he attended a one-room schoolhouse in Caneville, Illinois, and graduated the 8th grade in 1932, according to my mom. As he was growing up, the world around him was changing, and not for the good. The Great Depression brought hardship for many, but as for his family, they had the dairy farm, and dairy was like liquid gold. The economic depression of the 1930s was longer and harder than any in American history because it was followed by one of the longest, hardest droughts on record. The drought first hit in the eastern part of the country in 1930. By 1934, it had turned the Great Plains into a desert, according to PBS. His family managed to survive the drought with a dairy farm and growing most of their food items, as Illinois was not hit as hard as the Great Plains area. Bartering was growing rapidly during the Great Depression as money was scarce and people had a difficult time getting what they needed. According to the Merriam-Webster dictionary, bartering simply means to trade by exchanging one commodity for another. This was a key way my grandfather's family kept afloat. After surviving the Great Depression, his mother became bedridden with a bad heart. This is where and when he met his soon-to-be wife, Dorothy Lewin, who was also his second cousin. She came to Chicago to take care of his mother. They were married in San Antonio, Texas, across from the Alamo, at Travis Park Methodist Church. After making it through the Great Depression and meeting the love of his life, the war began. My grandfather was one of the lucky ones in the war. He was enlisted in the war June 23, 1942, to an army base in 29 Palms, California. At first, he was a jeep driver for the commanding generals, but was shortly relieved from that position for taking them on wild-ass rides, according to my aunt. He was trained to become a T5 medic for the 377th Infantry, which is how he ended up in northern France. While serving in Rhineland, Germany, he ended up taking a bullet in the left elbow while trying to get another soldier to safety. He then spent time in England during his recovery. His tour duty ended on September 1945, where he was honorably discharged. He also received a Purple Heart for his heroism, along with a campaign medal for the European, African, and Mid-Eastern conflicts. Luckily, having survived the war only led him to his biggest challenge yet, his new family. My grandfather came home to a new baby, and shortly after, there was another one on the way. By then, his first daughter, Linda Joy, was 6 months old, and soon after came Bonnie Lee. At this point, they sold the farm and moved to Aurora, Illinois, to their first neighborhood community. My mom said they had the coolest house on the block. They had dance parties and movie night in their outside screen porch. He became a painter for Benson Manufacturing for the next 17 years. As the years passed, retirement came, and that's when they moved to Chatsworth, California, and then on to White City, Oregon. My grandfather passed on August 25, 1976. I was 5 years old. It never gets old to speak of the ones you love. My grandfather was an outstanding person, and that is what I share with you today. Today I shared his childhood, Depression years, war days, and family. Although my grandfather passed when I was very young, I am thankful to have family members that remembers all the wonderful stories. My grandfather may have earned a Purple Heart, but he definitely had a heart of gold.